Turkey is having an unusual experience of attempts to form a coalition government. Currently, forming a coalition government is less likely than it was right after the election. For the first time in Turkey's history, the delegations of two parties have decided to hold preliminary talks. The Justice and Development Party, AK Party, delegation gave the Republican People's Party, CHP, delegation a hard time in 5 meetings. The CHP delegation, in the 35-hour-long meetings, expressed its views on the types of solutions it wanted to develop to address the main problems in Turkey should it come to power in a coalition government. There have been signs of fading hopes for a coalition government during the talks, but there have also been constructive statements as well. The fourth meeting was particularly tense because President Recep Tayyip Erdoğan made pretty negative statements before his Far East trip, and AK Party leader Ahmet Davutoğlu had stated they are speaking to the Nationalist Movement Party, MHP, as well. Haluk Koc, the head of the CHP delegation, stressed they have made sacrifices to ensure that the country would have a government, but AK Party delegation head Ömer Çelik seemed reluctant to be part of a coalition government. Çelik's indifference to the responses and proposals of the CHP delegation were noteworthy. His reluctance and indifference gave the impression that the AK Party did not actually want a government. It was also argued that Davutoğlu was not satisfied with the performance of the delegation. Reportedly, he tried to have Çelik removed as head of the delegation, but failed. Speaking to today's Zaman, a former AK Party deputy said, Numan Kurtulmaz serves as deputy head of the delegation while Çelik serves as the head even though he is not a deputy. Obviously, Çelik was not appointed by Davutoğlu. Erdoğan, who appointed former deputies who served 3 terms in parliament as his advisors in the AK Saray, picked Çelik as the head of the delegation so that he would achieve his political goals. Davutoğlu cannot change this. The former AK Party deputy further argued that President Erdoğan appointed Çelik as head of the delegation right after the June 7 election, adding, "There is something that everyone is missing here." On June 14, Erdoğan held a meeting with Çelik in Istanbul that lasted 4.5 hours. What did they talk about in this rather lengthy meeting? A very short statement was made after that meeting, which suggests they had devised a strategy there. I am sure Erdoğan is following the interdelegation meetings via Çelik. The media has also argued that Çelik is a Trojan horse in the coalition talks. In the meantime, Ankara Mayor Melih Gökçek also made some interesting remarks on the talks between the delegations. In his tweets, Gökçek argued the CHP delegation had adopted a fairly constructive and lenient attitude during the talks. It is no secret that the CHP had abandoned some of its red lines. CHP leader Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu previously stated they would not seek revenge and would not pursue legal action for the December 17 to 25 corruption process. Speaking to pro-government media, Kılıçdaroğlu gave a message of harmony with the AK Party in a coalition government. The CHP leader did not insist on serving as prime minister on a basis of rotation. Initially, Kılıçdaroğlu said they would want a coalition government that would stay in power for 2 years before an early election, but later changed his position and stressed that a coalition government could serve the whole 4-year term, without insisting that he should be prime minister in that government. Speaking to today's Zaman, CHP delegation head and party speaker Koc also said they were working to fulfill their responsibility vis-a-vis the country and were prepared to make sacrifices from their own interests. The CHP's constructive approach put those who want an early election within the AK Party and the president in a delicate position because they had to find an excuse for an early election without forming a coalition government. The outcomes of the talks between the delegations made it necessary for Davutoğlu and Kılıçdaroğlu to discuss the matter further. Political analysts suggested that Erdoğan's initial goal was to put an end to the talks in the preliminary stage. However, the CHP made sacrifices and paid strong attention to national issues during these talks. Despite some tensions in the fourth meeting, the delegations reflected a general tendency towards reconciliation in the fifth round of talks. The CHP delegation prioritized national problems by abandoning some of its red lines during the talks. They now hold moral superiority in explaining their position to the public. A CHP figure, noting that they will be able to tell the people that the AK party is responsible for the failure in the coalition talks, told Sunday's Zaman they did not raise any strong demands and instead focused on the national issues of the country. Despite comments that there will be no coalition government because of Erdoğan's unconstructive attitude, Democratic Left Party, DSP, leader Masum Turker argued the AK party and the CHP will form a coalition government. Speaking to Sunday's Zaman, Turker said, even though Erdoğan is sending a message of an early election and staging his opposition to a coalition government, the AK party and the CHP will form a coalition government. I can say that the chance of such a coalition happening is 95%. If coalition is formed, by abandoning its red lines, the CHP is making things easier for Davutoğlu. The business world as well as 11th President Abdullah Gül also wants an AK party CHP coalition. How will this coalition affect the AK Saray? Will the palace give its consent to the coalition if the CHP will not pursue the legal status of the palace, the December 17 to 25 corruption and other controversial matters? What will happen if these issues are raised by the MHP or the People's Democratic Party, HDP, in Parliament? President Erdoğan, who picked the coalition delegation, made arguments against a coalition government and asked for an early election, will have to consider these tough questions.